Diana and her children were evicted from their home by the landlord who had rented it out to them for free. They wandered aimlessly with the little possessions they had gathered until they came across a run-down, impoverished house that had been abandoned. They made their way to the location without any expectation of discovering something that would change their lives. Diana was beautiful and a successful lawyer who, just when she thought she'd found love, was actually digging her own tomb by the time she realized it. Because her father died in an aircraft crash, her mother was left to raise her on her own. The lady was able to support her daughter and invest for her future thanks to the insurance she'd purchased on the company's insurance policy. The bond between a mother and her daughter was unbreakable. Diana, on the other hand, was externally thankful to Donna Socorro thanks to she was always aware of her presence. She was kind and considerate, and as a result, he considered her to be the best friend she could have wished for. Despite the fact that the lady had insurance money from the plane crash, she made it a point to spend as little as possible because she said that she wanted the money so that her daughter might benefit from it. As a result, she worked from home sewing garments. She was a talented dressmaker who earned the respect of many well-heeled ladies in their community. Therefore, they were able to support themselves only on the earnings from their employment. While growing up, Diana learned to sew from her mother, and when she had too many errands to run, she assisted him, of course, but she was well aware that the lady was making every effort to provide her all she required. As well as customized delicacies, Donna Socorro produced them without regard to whether or not they had enough sewing supplies. The work was always accepted, and she always produced on schedule and with high-quality outcomes. Diana learned everything she knew about work from her mother, and as a result, she had a profound regard for her and vowed to herself that she would be an exceptional mother, like Donna Socorro. As a result of a snake bite she had while on an expedition with her daughter, she was unable to see her daughter's development into a great professional since she was in a remote area and did not arrive in time for the antidote to be injected before it was too late. Consequently, Diana lost her mother without having any idea of what lay ahead for her in life. Diana was introduced to a new instructor at the law school, and she immediately fell in love with him. He was a well-dressed and well-prepared gentleman. He was also taken with the young lady, and the two of them began dating. When she graduated, he assisted her in obtaining employment at a prominent buffet. After some time had passed, Alonzo approached Diana and asked her to be his wife, which she graciously accepted. He was responsible for all the wedding expenses. They moved into the house, which had previously been owned by Diana and her mother. This was the beginning of their adventure together on the path to building a wonderful family. Everything looked to be going swimmingly at that time. In all seriousness, Alonzo, the truth is that your grandfather was a hardworking guy who raised his family in an environment where there was nothing wanting. Diana became pregnant within a few months of getting married, and the occasion was marked with a special supper at the best restaurant in town. Diana's pregnancy progressed without a hitch, and Alonzo was present to assist her at the time of her delivery. Because her mother's work was likewise of high quality, the youngster was practically born into a golden cradle when he was born. Diana, on the other hand, became pregnant again within a few months, and this time the babies were twins. With each passing year, the family got larger, and Diana was ecstatic. Alonzo requested that she stay at home to babysit and that she resign from her work. She wholeheartedly agreed, believing that a good mother should devote her entire being to the care of her children, and she was right. Alonzo continued to work hard to ensure that the standard of living in the house remained the same as it was while Diana was working, especially after the fourth child was born. But things became more complicated when Alonzo, the prominent lawyer, was sued by his ex-wife for fraud, which forced him to defend himself in court against the complaint. The woman accused him of defrauding her of her inheritance and demanding that he repay the money that had been taken from her. The man informed his wife, Diana, that everything had been a lie and that he was attempting to damage him as a result of her ex's jealousy's wife of him. However, when the judicial sentence was presented in court, they judged him guilty and sentenced him to prison, and he did not pay the whole amount of money. True, Diana was anxious and she wanted to rescue him from embarrassment and shame, so she told him about the money that her mother had been saving for years so that she could use it whenever she was in need. He quickly asked her to please give him the money so that he could pay for it and avoid going to jail. She obliged. After accepting the offer without a moment's hesitation, she went to her bank and requested that all the money be withdrawn. She then handed the money to Alonzo, who told her that he had already paid off the debt with his ex-wife and stated that everything would be an injustice. Diana felt confident that things would go smoothly now that her husband was no longer bound by any commitments. However, nothing could be further from the truth than that assumption, and the worst was yet to happen. Alonzo informed his wife that he was going to embark on the most exciting business venture of his life, but he required money to do so. As a result, he persuaded her to pledge her home as a collateral to the bank in exchange for a substantial sum of money. Diana had taken out the loan in her name, and unfortunately for her, as well as for Alonzo, she had the money in her possession. She informed him that she would, of course, go to the consortium of her buddy in order to deliver her portion of the money. She, on the other hand, never returned. Diana was distraught and didn't know what to do, so she went back to hunting for employment and was involved in a number of situations as a result of having to pay the money she received from the bank. The money she received from her employer, where she served as head of the legal department, was insufficient to cover her living needs. So 6 months after Alonzo left, Diana's situation became even more difficult when the bank informed her that she had to vacate her home due to her failure to pay the mortgage. Diana and her children were forced to relocate due to a change in their living situation. However, everything came crashing down when her wages were garnished, and she found it extremely difficult to make ends meet while also paying the rent and feeding her children. She was only able to remain in that house for 3 months since the owner evicted her and her children for failing to pay rent on time. She was forced to leave everything behind, including her children. Her tears were streaming down her face, but she had no choice but to gather her children and flee the scene of this horrific incident. The unfortunate woman had no idea where she was headed at the time. She strolled with her children for a long distance till they reached a park, where she set them on a bench and instructed them to wait for her, as she needed to return to work as if nothing had happened. When she arrived at the park at the conclusion of her job, she discovered that the older girl holding the smaller boy who was fast asleep in her arms. She was able to provide them with milk and bread, while the little coins she had in her possession. She grabbed the infant in her arms and told the others to follow her out of the city when they were finished. It was obvious that she was exhausted, as evidenced by her expression. The lines on her face, the lines on his torso, the lines on his physique. Along the way, they came across a modest little house that appeared to be abandoned. Certainly the walls were made of yes, but to her, it appeared to be the ideal place to spend the night. As a result, she walked through the little wired gate at the entrance to the building and into the building with the children. She approached the small house and knocked on the door, but no one responded. They pushed the door open and discovered that it was unlocked and unoccupied. They were able to spend the night indoors after settling down with a few blankets in that location. The following day, Diana returned to her place of employment and instructed the youngsters not to leave the premises. Because she was concerned that something would happen to them, the poor mother had to go to work, and she had no idea how startled her children would be when she got home. Throughout the day, as the children were pretending to be explorers, Mariana, the oldest girl, began digging in the ground and, to her amazement, discovered a small box that looked like a chest, which the children proclaimed to be pirate's treasure. The children were unable to open the chest on their own, so they patiently awaited Diana's arrival with bated breath. After she had given them what little she had, Diana decided to participate in the pirate's treasure hunt. To her astonishment, when she opened the chest, she saw numerous gold outfits, as well as a bearer's check for $1 million. Diana couldn't believe what she was seeing and burst into tears of joy. There was also a letter stating that those lands belonged to a wealthy landowner who intended to teach her family a lesson by burying her fortune at various locations in hopes that individuals who were in desperate need would come upon it and take it. As a result, the young woman went to the bank and the check was cashed. Her life, as well as the lives of her children, were irrevocably altered as a result of this event. And when Alonzo discovered that he had money, he returned. But she filed a lawsuit against him for fraud, and he was sentenced to prison. After that, we'd want to hear your thoughts on the matter from you, dear friends. You can leave your response in the comments box below so that everyone can see it.